South Haven, Michigan. A town that you can never go wrong with, that's for sure, especially in the summertime. You know, I live about 10 to 15 minutes away from this town. While South Haven isn't necessarily my favorite town, as I'm more of a fan of Traverse City, Ludington, Petoskey, and Mackinac City, you know, it's still a beautiful spot to visit, both in the summertime and the wintertime. You know, summertime is usually my favorite time to go to South Haven, because, you know, I definitely like chilling out at the beach, watching all the boats go by. Not to mention, in the recent years, they started having these types of boats. You know, they have like two or three of these boats. Cabana boats, I believe is what they're called. Oh, and let's not forget, South Haven also has their very own pirate ship. As far as I'm aware, you can take a ride on this pirate ship. I don't remember how much it cost to ride this. Back in 2018 or 2019, I was told it was 30 bucks. I don't know if it has changed since then. But yeah, I absolutely love seeing this boat go by. You know, every time I watch it go by, I absolutely love to record it and take pictures of it, that's for sure. Well, yeah, like I said, you know, you can never go wrong with visiting South Haven in the summertime. I definitely think that South Haven has quite a bit to offer. Heck, even going there in the wintertime too can sometimes be beautiful, because it's beautiful to watch the river that cuts through the pier into Lake Michigan, which is Black River. It's cool to watch that freeze up, yeah, that's for sure. Anyways, I don't mean to keep going too far off subject about talking about South Haven and what it has to offer. My main subject matter for this video is the two storms that would come through on July 3rd of 2026. Yeah, this storm right here, you know, this was the first storm that came through. You know, this storm would come through, I think, it was probably around sometime between 3 and 4. I'll have to check the times I took these videos again, but yeah, you know, this storm definitely turned out to be a crazy storm. While it wasn't necessarily the worst here in South Haven, there were quite a few areas east of me that definitely got hit hard. You know, Paw Paw, Kalamazoo, Portage, Plainwell, Battle Creek. Yeah, a lot of areas that way had quite a bit of bad wind, lots of power outages, and just so many things that happened. For an example, this was one of my friend's houses in Portage area. You know, her home definitely had some damage, you know, quite a bit of branches down, and there was some damage to her house too, unfortunately, which you guys will see in these photos here shortly. But yeah, just lots of branches down, that's for sure. You know, you can see some damage right there. Yeah, definitely some gutter damage. Soffit damage too. Just, yeah. Yeah, there was some damage. Yeah, they had a branch that went right through their roof. Yeah, it was definitely crazy, that's for sure. Yeah, you can see there's some holes on their roof. Yeah, they had to have that tarped. Yeah, like I said, it definitely did quite a bit of damage around Kalamazoo, Portage, Paw Paw, Plainwell. A lot of areas over that way. Yeah, that's for sure. Unfortunately, that wasn't the only storm that would pass through South Haven that day. We would get hit with another severe thunderstorm later on, you know, right before the fireworks started. They never canceled the fireworks. They ended up still lighting those off and doing the show. But unfortunately, some of my family and I had already left and we didn't stay to watch it. I did record a little bit of the fireworks from a distance, but didn't really get the best view of it. I did, however, have some family that was still sitting at the beach. Thankfully, they were parked at the beach, so they were able to stay and watch the fireworks from their vehicle. I unfortunately couldn't park at the parking lot of the beach, and I'll explain that later on in this video. But yeah, unfortunately I had to walk quite a ways to my truck, so you know, I wasn't really parked nearby, unfortunately. But yeah, like I said, some of my family was still at the beach and they were able to get videos of the fireworks, that's for sure. And you could see some of the lightning in the background too. I definitely thought that that was cool. Now, I'm not going to include firework videos in this storm documentary besides the ones that I'm showing you guys right now, as I already uploaded videos of that fireworks show separately onto my YouTube channel. That, and I also included them in this vlog right here, which I uploaded recently to my YouTube channel. You know, feel free to go check that out. For the first storm that came through, you know, as soon as I started seeing clouds rolling in, that's when I decided to start recording them, you know, because I was well aware that we were supposed to get a few storms. I basically kept doing some filming because I knew that there was going to be a storm coming, because, you know, I heard about it from Michigan Storm Chasers, News Channel 3, Ryan Hall, y'all, Max Velocity, Wood TVA, and a few others that I follow online. So, you know, I already had a feeling that there was going to be a storm coming through. So about maybe the last 30 to 45 minutes or so of the clouds rolling in, you know, my main focus was with the cloud, especially considering they kept getting darker and darker. You know, I'm watching how they're moving and how they're looking in some spots, and I just had a feeling that there was going to be a bad storm coming in. And while I wasn't able to get the best video of a shelf cloud rolling in before walking away from the beach, at one point you do hear the lifeguards there announcing that there is a bad storm coming and that lightning was occurring and that people needed to leave and they could return after the storm. Now, I'll continue doing some more explaining and speaking, you know, towards the end of the video. I mean, I'll do a little more speaking before the second storm rolls through to do a little more explaining, but other than that, I'll explain everything else that I want to explain before the second storm rolls in. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoy this video.
Look over to your left. Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Look. No. Yeah. So, now you see me waving? By the blue tent. Look, I got my hand in my hand. Look way back there. I see ya. Beautiful. See where I'm at? All right, hurry up.
Yeah, as long as we don't get strong wind, we'll be all right.
We'll all be huddled with the canopy holding it down.
Yeah. I brought my tablet camera with me, but because I didn't have a whole lot of shade to freaking put it in, it kept overheating.
I had it for a while. I'm gonna use it to save my chairs.
Silas.
Here, Brian, your stuff's over here. Here. Look. Here. Here.
Oh, wait.
Sorry about my heavy breathing. I'm trying to get to my truck before it arrives. Holy crap. Oh my gosh. Wow. Alright, I made it to the truck. I think I'm just gonna wait this storm out here. Luckily there's no big trees near me. Oh my gosh. Again, I'm sorry about my heavy breathing and for the fact that I was freaking out a little bit. I had a bit of a walk to get to the frickin' truck because a lot of the parking spots were already frickin' taken by the time I got over here. Oh my gosh, look at those clouds. It's not showing up the best on camera, but hope my grandma and my 2 aunts are all right. Kind of had to abandon some stuff because there was no way I was going to be able to get it all to the truck in time. Hopefully it'll still be there by the time I get back. And again, there was quite a few people that was abandoning their stuff too. Starting to rain a little bit. Shoot, leaves are going down. Saw some small twigs too. Freaking cell service is cutting out. Oh, here's the rain. There it is. Come on. I didn't realize I was zoomed in. My bad. Not one time in 100 years did I ever think I'd be sitting on the side of the road recording a storm. But here we are. Sorry guys. I don't want to have my windows all the way up because it's freaking hot in this truck. Oh, I should have grabbed a freaking water. I don't know why I didn't. I'm freaking parched right now. I have an energy drink in my center console, but that thing is probably freaking extremely warm. Not exactly a fan of piss warm Monster energy drinks. Pardon my language. I do a quick YouTube Shorts video of this storm, but I don't have very good cell service right now. Word of advice, if you're at a beach and you're parked quarter to half a mile away and there's a storm coming and you got to run to your truck, make sure you have a water or two on you. Thankfully I had some water left in my gym water bottle. It was a bit warm, but it kind of helped for now. I almost want to drive to a gas station and get something to drink, but I just worry the second I frickin' pull out of my spot, I'm gonna have a heck of a time finding parking. So, just gonna have to be patient. Just grab something to drink when I get back to the cooler. Period. Oh guys, about 25 minutes later, starting to cool or calm down. I mean, it did cool down too, but calm down. I guess Michigan Storm Chasers and News Channel 3 were just reporting that Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport reported 79 miles per hour. That is insane. Wow. It's crazy. Alright guys, well, I've been sitting in here for almost an hour. I think I'm going to go ahead and chance it and head back down to the beach. Or head back to my aunt, both my aunts and my grandma. Just hang out by them for a little bit, period. I do have a change of clothes, thankfully. So, if I get soaked, then whatever. I worry a little bit about my tablet getting wet, but I think I'm just going to wrap a towel around it, stuff it in my bag, and call it good. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. Well, made it back to the beach. Had to abandon a lot of this stuff because I wasn't going to be able to get it to the truck in time. Was able to get that bag, my backpack, and this chair. I was smart and took a chair with me so that way it wasn't soaked when I got back. Yeah, oh look at those seagulls. Wow. And the flags are red. That's a frickin' bummer.
We're gonna be right down here by the flagpole.
Well, they're changing the flag at least. Well, it's not green, but yellow is better than red at least.
That's what I'm talking about.
It don't help. I only poop like every 3 days. And I'm on.
Well, that concludes the first storm that came through on July 3rd, 2026. Unfortunately, that was not the only storm that would come through. Later on, we would get another storm that would come through, and while it wasn't like bad, as windy as the first storm that came through, it would still come in with quite a bit of rain. Prior to the second storm rolling in, I ran to go use the restroom, and prior to me doing that, I noticed it was starting to get more and more cloudy, but I didn't really think much of it. I just kind of didn't really pay any mind to the weather, and I just kind of went on upon my evening. But as I was coming back from the restroom, I would notice that it was downpouring in that one spot, and there were even times where I saw some lightning bolts. And I unfortunately didn't record any of the lightning bolts that would happen, but I tell you what, it's. I looked at what it was doing in the distance, and I just had a feeling in my gut to where it was about to get crazy again as far as the weather goes. Unfortunately, right after we left the beach and we were trying to get to my truck, it unfortunately started downpouring pretty quick, and I had to walk a quarter to half a mile or so to my truck, and let me tell you, that was not fun. Especially in the downpouring rain. I had my backpack with me, and I had a wagon full of stuff. I had my tablet that I recorded with in my backpack. I was extremely worried about that thing getting ruined, which thankfully it did not get ruined. You know, it didn't even get wet, which I was absolutely thankful for. You know, the second storm, yeah, it was talked about on the news and on Michigan Storm Chasers, but I didn't really think much of it. You know, because I didn't really pay much attention to Michigan Storm Chasers or the news, you know, I wasn't really expecting the second storm to roll through the way it did. And that lightning bolt that you guys just saw, I took a screenshot of it as I was going through videos that I took of the storm. That's for sure. But I don't want to keep boring you guys out with my speaking. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys videos of the second storm. And yeah. Oops. Alright guys, we'll change of plans. There's lightning over there. So, unfortunately, we are not going to stay for fireworks. There's not a lot of people evacuating yet, but there probably will be. But yeah, there was some lightning over there. And I'm not about to get caught in any more. So, yeah. Oh, yep, there it went. Yeah. I bet you they're gonna frickin' have everybody evacuate again later, here shortly. But yeah, unfortunately, we're not gonna stay for fireworks. Alright.
I think we would have been okay if it was just sprinkling, but
If it was just sprinkling, I would have stayed.
yeah, and if the clouds didn't look as bad, yeah, I think we would have been safe, but
Yeah, we will. It's not super windy.
it's raining. I could go faster than
Yeah, I do too. What?
Hey, because Mom and Dad freaked out like this. They freaked out bad when it's raining like this because, I don't know if you remember, but a while back when Mom and Dad went to South Haven and it got dark all of a sudden and they were at a bar or whatever spending time with each other, and then on their way home, like these tree branches, it was snowing really bad and these tree branches on the
Yeah. I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, Mom and Dad freaked out really bad though.
Yeah, and you know, rightfully so. You know, we had that first bad storm, and yeah, I get why you guys waited, you know, totally understandable. But you know, I'm texting, you know, Dad and I were texting each other back and forth earlier, and it's, oh my gosh, dude, oh jeez. There's a branch down.
But then again, it's kind of their fault. I told Mom that we took the car.
Yeah, well, like I said, they don't pay attention to the weather like I do sometimes. What the hell, dude? I don't know, but I can barely frickin' see right now. We're all right now. We're okay. Jesus, just please watch over us. heck is that freaking...
Boy?
I don't know if it's my
Yeah, it's
flag or... As long as that thing didn't snap.
It looks like they're still there.
I would hope so.
I don't know about that one, guys. I know, and Robin was just texting me saying there was another man storm heading my way. I was like, well, let's just hope it's this one that's hitting us now.
Yeah, no kidding. Like, you know you have a lot of people coming. Why make it to where you can't park on some of the roads? Like, that don't make any sense. Because what it does, it makes parking pretty congested in some areas. I mean, some of the roads that I was driving on to try and get Logan back to his motorcycle, I could barely even go down because, you know, the road isn't wide enough and, you know, there's people parked on both sides.
Angel, didn't go with you guys? Like, walk with you guys?
She walked there by herself. Oh my gosh.
Like,
We're all right. We're all right.
You walked by herself? Oh,
Yeah.
great.
That was frickin' bright. Hopefully that didn't frickin' strike the house.
I don't think so.
I doubt it did, but
Just that way, it's not.
no, it was kind of in the direction. I'll have to do a slow-mo of that. Holy crap.
He's one that makes wrong. That's the one.
I don't know if I'm going to drive this to Gun Lake tomorrow. Either that or Dad's van. Well, that depends. Well, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I think I'm just gonna sit in the truck until they see Mom and Dad pull up.
Alright.
Does he have his brights on? I can't tell.
No, he doesn't.
Oh. Let's hope our house still have power.
It does.
Look at my face paint. It's still holding on.
That's definitely a surprise.
Hi, Aunt Robin, where are you at? Are you home?
Yes, you can't see me, can you?
I can see you a little bit.
You guys' power still out?
Yeah, you guys' power still out?
Yup.
There's-
Mom.
There they are.
There's the flashlight.
Huh?
Okay, it's flashlight. Trying to get on the side of the flashlight.
There you go, let's try this again. Recording with the tablet now. I did just get on Facebook and look at Michigan Storm Chasers Facebook page. They are not going live right now, unfortunately. I mean, they went live earlier for that other storm we had. But they did put out some things on their Facebook page, though. It's supposed to be on and off thunderstorms throughout the night. Yeah. I don't know how long this is gonna frickin' last, because I mean, I don't have to get up early in the morning, thankfully. Yeah. Well, guys, that concludes it for both the storms that I recorded in and around South Haven on July 3rd of 2026. Now, again, I ended up not adding in any videos of the fireworks that some of my family took videos of, because I already included that in a few different videos. Not to mention, they will also be included in this big video that I have coming up, which is my late May to Independence Day vlog, which I will be working on right after this video goes up. That's for sure. Yeah, I won't lie, you know, I was a bit bummed out over the fact that there were two different storms that came through. Because, you know, this was a day that I had been planning for months on end. Because, you know, South Haven fireworks are something that I always look forward to. Because, you know, I absolutely love Independence Day. It's one of my favorite holidays alongside Christmas and Thanksgiving. And, you know, it's just a day that I absolutely love celebrating. That's for sure, you know. Each and every year we go and watch fireworks in South Haven on July 3rd. And then we also go and watch another fireworks show over in Gun Lake. For those of you who aren't familiar with Gun Lake, it's a lake that is located just outside of Wayland, Hastings, and Middleville. It's a decent sized lake that sits right on the county line of Allegan County and Berry County. It's one of my favorite inland lakes to go to, that's for sure. Gun Lake fireworks is another fireworks show that I absolutely look forward to. Yeah, Gun Lake definitely knows how to throw a pretty good fireworks show as well. Now that's for sure. And keep in mind, you know, the videos I took at Gun Lake will also be included in my late May to Independence Day vlog that I have coming up as well. That's for sure. Now, one thing I keep forgetting to mention is you guys may have noticed that the flags were already yellow before the first storm even rolled in. And that's because the night prior to that, we had another thunderstorm that came through, and while I do not believe it was bad in South Haven, you know, there were areas north of South Haven that got hit with quite a storm. I remembered recording the lightning from my house in Bangor, Breetsville area, and it definitely reminded me of how the May 15th, 2025 storm started. But thankfully it didn't get as bad as that storm, at least in my area anyways. You know, there were quite a few areas that were hit hard in Allegan County, Berry County, and a few other counties around my area, that's for sure. But yeah, because there were storms nearby and ended up messing with the lake water a little bit, causing it to be pretty wavy at times. And within the first hour after the first storm came through, flags were red for about an hour or so. Throughout the entire time I was at the beach, though, that day, they were never green. But I guess yellow is a little better, at least. Now, I'm sure I don't need to go and explain what the flag colors mean, because I'm sure more than half of you who are watching this video know what they mean. But, I mean, I'm sure if you don't, then you could easily go and look it up. But I'm sure a lot of you know what the flag colors mean. Yeah, that's for sure. This year was definitely the first year that, you know, in a long time that South Haven had lifeguards on the beach. So I will say that, you know, if it wasn't for the lifeguards, you know, I don't think as many people would have been aware of what was coming right before the first storm hit. But even then, you definitely had a lot of people that were just not really paying any attention to the weather. You know, prior to the first storm coming in, before it started getting cloudy, you definitely had quite a few people that were sitting there joking around and, you know, making fun of some of the news stations nearby. And at one point, I even heard somebody sit there and make fun of Michigan storm chasers too. Sit there and be like, "Oh well, you know, the weather's beautiful right now." Yeah, you know, they don't, you know, the forecasters don't know what they're talking about. You know, the news stations don't know what they're talking about. Oh, Michigan storm chasers don't know what they're talking about. Da 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 da. And it's like, okay, look, I understand the point that some people are making, because I get it. There are times where sometimes the weather forecasters aren't always correct. You know, I could obviously tell you that right now. And then you also have people who are like, oh, well, you know, my weather app didn't say anything about this happening or that happening. Well, let me tell you this right now. Sometimes weather apps aren't always accurate. You know, you can't always rely on electronics, you know, devices or anything like that to, you know, rely on what the weather is going to do. Because, you know, those things aren't always accurate. You know, a lot of the apps, you know, you might find some apps out there that are pretty accurate, but even then, sometimes those aren't always the most accurate as well. Yeah, that's for sure. Now, keep in mind, real quick, the videos I'm showing you guys right now, that's the storm that went nearby my place the day before I went to South Haven. You know, this storm was responsible for messing with Lake Michigan in quite a few areas, causing the flags to be yellow for most of the day. That's for sure. But yeah, sometimes the weather does what it wants to do, and sometimes the weather apps don't pick it up like it should. You know, which is why we have news stations, you know, which is why, you know, if you live in Michigan, we have Michigan storm chasers. Or in, you know, in other cases, you know, we also have other YouTubers and weather forecasters that talk about the weather too, like Ryan Hall, y'all, or Max Velocity, or some of the other local news stations nearby. You know, that's for sure. But yeah, I get it. Sometimes people aren't correct about news forecasts or weather or anything like that at times. You know, a lot of times I don't watch the news other than for weather purposes, because, you know, a lot of the times, a lot of news stations out there are more focused on things going on in politics, or, you know, things going on in other areas that aren't in their jurisdiction. So, you know, that, to an extent, I can understand that right there. That, and sometimes you just have to rely on your own instincts, you know, like rely on, you know, your gut feelings, you know. And that was my case with two of the storms that would come through. You know, that's for sure. I would have had a live stream from Michigan Storm Chasers going from the first video, but unfortunately I didn't have very good cell service, so I wasn't able to watch their video or live stream. You know, unfortunately, because there were so many people in South Haven, and because of the amount of stormy weather that we kept having, especially here lately, you know, cell service hadn't been the best in South Haven. You know, so I wasn't able to really watch any weather live streams, or send a bunch of text messages, check the weather. And there were times where I couldn't even receive text messages or answer phone calls because of how bad cell service was. Yeah, that's for sure. Usually on July 3rd and during Blueberry Fest and Harbor Fest, which is this festival right here, because there's a lot of people, and sometimes cell service isn't really the best, especially around those times. Yeah, that's for sure. So, if you ever plan to go to a festival like I usually like to do, especially in South Haven, mind you, cell service in South Haven isn't the best, that's for sure. Not too far from where I was at, though. Silver Beach, which was probably about 25 minutes south of South Haven. I know there was a lot of people there that didn't evacuate until the storm was right on them. And you could see lots of videos from nearby businesses and some of the videos that people took there where, there was that shelf cloud that I recorded as I was trying to hurry up to my truck. You could clearly see that, and you have a lot of people that just weren't paying much attention to the clouds. And like I said, prior to the first storm rolling in, you definitely had a lot of people that were making jokes about the weather, mocking a lot of the weather forecasters, sitting there saying this and that, talking, they don't know what they're talking about, blah, blah, blah. And, like I said, to an extent I get their points, but, just because you don't think they're correct, that doesn't mean that can't change. That's for sure. And, like I said, I was prepared for the first storm because I knew that was going to be coming through. I unfortunately wasn't as prepared for the second storm because I thought that was supposed to come through later on. But that ended up coming through a few hours earlier than I expected. And it started off as one spot that was super rainy and stormy. But, like I said, weather does what it wants to do sometimes. That's the reality of Mother Nature. That's for sure. But one thing I will say is, I guess I got my wish, because there for a while I've been wanting to record quite a storm in South Haven. Just not on the day that they were doing their fireworks. That's the only thing. There was another time on my 21st birthday, which was back on July 20th, 2019, that I was at North Beach and was hanging out there for my birthday because that's what I wanted to do. And we ended up getting a bad storm that came through. Now, granted, throughout the times I recorded it, it wasn't too bad. But there were times where I wasn't recording where it did get pretty bad. This is what it looked like prior to the storm passing through. I mean, this looks almost similar to what I saw on July 3rd. That's for sure. Prior to this storm coming through, I would receive alerts from National Weather Service in Grand Rapids and National Weather Service in Milwaukee that, there would be a storm coming my way. And you know, it might not look so bad on video, but like I said, there were times where it did get bad. Yeah, that is for sure. Like the second I got dropped off at my truck, that day, it started raining like crazy. There was also another time back in 2018 where I was at Gun Lake and we had an unexpected storm that came through. Now, I'm sure the weather forecasters knew that this was going to happen, but see those clouds right there? You know, that cloud right there would quickly grow into something big, and we would eventually get hit with a pretty bad storm. That's for sure. You know, everywhere else that you look, it looked completely beautiful. And unfortunately, I did not record when this came through because I had to hurry up and get stuff loaded into the trucks and all. But yeah, let me tell you, that was a crazy day that day. That's for sure. Now, one thing I will say is, you know, other than the storms we had and the screwed up parking rules that South Haven had this year, I mean, still had a good time. You know, that's for sure. You know, as far as their parking goes, like, you know, if you want to park down by the beach, it's card only pay, which I think is kind of stupid, you know. To an extent, I understand why they decided to go with that as far as paid parking goes. But, you know, I don't really like to use card pay for a lot of things unless if I think it's necessary to do so. And then as far as a lot of their side road parking, I was definitely highly disappointed with how they were handling their parking, because a lot of the side roads, and mind you, they're roads that aren't busy, you know, there's roads that are wide enough to where, you know, people could park on both sides and you could be able to drive down the road no issue, even with people parked on both sides. But because they had so many of the side streets that were where they had a bunch of temporary no parking signs, you know, it definitely made parking pretty congested in certain areas, which was one of my biggest complaints. You know, you guys heard me speak about that with my little sister while we were driving in the rainy weather on our way home. You know, as much as I love South Haven and I plan to continue to go there each and every year for their fireworks, you know, I just feel like they've been changing things up with their parking quite a bit. You know, that's just my honest opinion. You know, again, I still love South Haven, but that's my biggest rant with that town, especially when it comes to their fireworks shows. That's for sure. Anyways, that's going to conclude it for my storm documentary video. Now, before anybody gets on here and comments and says things like, oh, well, you know, those storms weren't that bad. Oh, you know, you're making them sound worse than they actually were, blah, blah, blah. Well, here's the thing. Just because they weren't bad in my area doesn't mean they weren't bad in other areas. Like, yeah, it wasn't too bad in South Haven. You know, South Haven usually doesn't get a whole lot of bad storms, because usually when they first hit land, they're on the weak side, but once they get further inland, that's when they regain their strength. You know, that's how a lot of them are in that area, so you do with that information that you wish. Anyways, that concludes this storm documentary video. I'm done speaking. You guys all take care now, and I hope everybody had a fantastic Independence Day to remember. Peace out.